Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Math with Dr. War. In today's lesson, we're going to be doing two things. We're going to be calculating the distance between 2 points on a number line, and we're also going to be creating and identifying absolute value expressions that model distance. But before we can start that, we have to talk about absolute value because on the GED test, you have to be able to identify absolute value. And when I say absolute value, I am talking about a rational number as its distance from zero or away from zero. So suppose I ask, what's the absolute value of 3? Now again, the absolute value of 3 is how far is 3 away from 0? It's only 3 units. So I'm going to draw a number line here. So this is 0, we have 1, 2, 3. If I want the absolute value of 3, I'm like, okay, how far is 3 from 0? If you count 1, 2, 3, it's only 3 units. And when we talk about the word distance, it's always positive. So suppose I wanted to know what's the absolute value of -5. Now I have my number line, so let's get -5 in here. And we want to find the absolute value of -5. Well, how far is -5 away from 0? If you count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's going to be 5 units. And distance is always positive. So how far is -5 from 0? It's only 5 units. I don't care what number I give you. Suppose I ask you, well, what's the absolute value of 25? I hope you're going to tell me 25. Suppose I ask you, what's the absolute value of -32? Now I know you're not going to draw a number line, so -32, the absolute value of that is 32. It's 32 units away from 0. Absolute value is talking about the distance, and distance is always a positive value. Now, since we got that out of the way, let's look at the distance between two rational numbers. So the first question I have here is, what is the distance between 2 and 6? So I have a number line here, and I'm going to find 2, which is right here, and I'm going to call that A. And I have 6 right here, and I'm going to call that B. Now, because the numbers are so small, to find the distance, you'll be like, oh, I can count that. So you're like 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, notice you got to jump first. So when you jump 1, 2, 3, 4. So what is the distance between 2 and 6? The answer is 4. On the GED test, they might want you to model the expression. So you have to be able to choose the correct expression that models distance. Now, if we want to model distance, we would write it as D for distance. And because I labeled my points as A and B, inside I would have AB in the parentheses. Now, the distance will be the difference of the absolute values of your endpoints. So I'm going to have my absolute value signs here, and then your endpoints, 2 and 6. Now, it's up to you how you write your difference. So some students would go, oh, the first one for me is 2, so they'll write 2, take away 6. Now, here's where you have to be able to subtract your integers. So we all know, and I'm going to go up here, and now let's write in blue. So I have 2 take away 6. If you're going to subtract, you keep the first, change your subtraction sign to an addition, and change your second integer to the opposite, which will be -6. Because the signs are different, you would subtract, which would give you 4. And who's your bigger number? The 6, so your answer will be -4. So when you subtract 2 minus 6, you get -4. And the absolute value of -4 is +4. Now, there's some students, and this is me, I'm that student, that because I have to subtract, I'm going to put the bigger number first, 6, minus the smaller number. And I know 6 minus 2 is a positive 4. And the absolute value of 4 is 4. So it doesn't matter how you write your subtraction, you're going to get the same answer because the absolute value of positive 4 is the same value as the absolute value of negative 4. Let's try it again. What is the distance between negative 4 and 5? So on the number line, here's negative 4. Let's call that A. And positive 5 is right here. Let's call that B. Again, we have some students that because the numbers are so small, they'll just zippity-doo, draw a number line, zippity-doo, and start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And they're like, oh, the distance is 9. Finito. But you have to be able to write this as an expression. So if you want to know the distance, you're going to have your absolute value sign. You're going to have your absolute value signs. And what are you going to be doing? You're going to be subtracting. It's up to you how you want to write your subtraction. So you could have your negative 4 right here. Oops. Let's erase that and start all over. So you have your negative 4. And you're going to take away 5. Again, you're subtracting. So if you're subtracting, and let's do this in blue. Let's go over here. You have negative 4, take away 5. You keep the first, change the subtraction sign to an addition, change your second integer to the opposite, so that will be a negative 5. When the signs are the same, we add, keep the sign of the larger number, so that will be the absolute value of negative 9, and the absolute value of negative 9 is positive 9. So that's one way. Again, remember you can write this difference starting with 5, so you could go 5 first, take away, and then your negative 4. Again, you have to subtract that. So I have 5, take away negative 4, keep my first, change the subtraction sign to an addition, change the second integer to the opposite, so that's a positive 4. I know 5 plus 4 is 9, and the absolute value of a positive 9 is 9. So it's up to you how you do your subtraction, but no matter who is first, your answer will always be the same. Let's try one more. So we have what is the distance between negative 5 and negative 3. So I'm not going to count. I'm going to put my absolute value sign. I have negative 5, take away negative 3. Here's closing my absolute value. Go on the side, negative 5, take away negative 3. Keep the first, change the subtraction sign to an addition, change the second to the opposite, so this is a positive 3. Because my signs are different, subtract, keep the sign of the larger number, so that's a negative 2. So here, this will be the absolute value of negative 2. Absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2. If we did it the opposite way, negative 3, take away negative 5. Again, keep the first, change the subtraction sign to an addition, change the second integer to the opposite, that's a positive 5. Again, your signs are different, so you subtract, keep the sign of the larger number, it's a positive 2. The absolute value of positive 2 is 2. Let's look at some types of problems you may see on your GED exam. Here's question 1, where we're doing the first indicator, where you're calculating the distance. So it says a hiker starts hiking at the beginning of a trail at a point which is 200 feet below sea level. He hikes to a location on the trail that is 580 feet above sea level and stops for lunch. What is the vertical distance between 200 feet below sea level and 580 feet above sea level? So by reading this, the first thing I notice, it says, what is the vertical distance? Now, I'm not going to think about the vertical. Vertical just means going up and down. But the key word here is they're asking you what is the distance. Now, you have to pay attention to the words. Now, this says 200 feet below sea level. Now, because it's below sea level, it means this is negative 200. This is 580 feet above sea level, which means this will be a positive 580. And if we want to find the distance, you're going to have the absolute value. You can write negative 200, take away 580, or you could write 580. You can start with that first, take away, but remember that is a negative 200. You have to do the mathematics. So here, if we are subtracting, you keep the first, change the subtraction sign to an addition, change the second integer, which is a positive, to the opposite, which will be negative 580. Because the signs are the same, we would add. That would give you 780. Keep the sign of the larger, 580 will be the larger, so that will be a negative 780. So we're doing the absolute value of negative 780, which is 780. If we did this one, it will be keep the first, change the subtraction sign to an addition, change the second integer to the opposite, so that will be a positive 200. And then if you add that, you're going to get a positive absolute value of 780, which is 780. Question 2 says, at midnight, the temperature was negative 8 degrees Fahrenheit. At noon, the temperature was 23 degrees Fahrenheit. Which expression represents the increase in temperature? Now notice here they didn't say the distance, they said the increase in temperature. So here we have a thermometer. Suppose this here is negative 8 and then it went up to 23. So I want to know how much is the increase? Like how much did we have to go from negative 8 to 23. Now, doesn't this look like a number line? Well, yeah, thermometer is a number line. So you're like, oh, duh, I'm finding the distance. You got your absolute value signs. It's up to you. You can write it as negative 8, take away 23. Or, again, remember you're subtracting. So you could start with 23 and you're subtracting negative 8. Now, your answer is not A, does not have any absolute value signs. It's not B or C because they only have like one absolute value sign. So your answer is D. We did the two things that we needed to do for this concept, which was calculate the distance and also how do you identify the absolute value expression that would model distance, which is the second question. I hope you found this lesson helpful. If you did, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel and you like this lesson, please subscribe. And as always, if you have a comment, just drop it in the box. I would reply to you. If you know someone who is trying to get their high school diploma and math is what they have to take, please share the channel. And always, good luck on your GED exam. Oh, and one little note, we finally finished Q1. So Q1, we were doing a couple of things and I did the 4 topics in Q1, ordering fractions and decimals. Q1B, which was the factors and the multiples, that was the LCM and the GCF. Then we did Q1C, which was the laws of exponents. And this is the final topic in Q1, which is finding the distance between two rational numbers. And remember, this is in the basic mathematics section and you cannot use a calculator. So you have to do all of this subtraction manually. Have a great day.